Hello and welcome to the Identity Podcast, brought to you by Find Your ID NYC. Once again, go and like us on Facebook at Find Your ID NYC, and you can check out our Instagram by the same name. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube page at the X Shows as well. And you can always find the Identity Podcast on Spotify, Pandora, Apple, Google Podcasts, whatever podcast app out there. I promise you we are on it. And you can follow us on TikTok at the Identity Podcast. I'm your co-host, Caleb. Very excited to be here. It is our final show of 2020. Can you believe it? 2020? What? This crazy year that is 2020. It's our final show. But I'm excited to end it with a great show. I'm really excited about this one. And then next week as well, very big show to kick off the new year, which we'll talk about at the end of the show. But let me go ahead and introduce, someone that has kind of become really important in my life. And that person is my fellow co-host, Tarik. How you doing, Tarik?
Oh, me. I was like waiting for someone to come out of door number one or something. I appreciate you so much, Caleb. No, this is you have done this so much. I know we big up each other every episode. They're like, these guys need to get a room, but this is how we support. And I think a lot of this came from the fact that we wanted to support people in their vision and their craft and their entrepreneurship. So thanks to you guys out there, and guys, dolls, whatever you may identify as. Thank you so much. This has meant the world to me. We have been hosting on some radio shows now. Like, there's a lot of good stuff in the works. Like, we're on pretty much every platform, and that was like a big step for us. So thanks for sticking with me since the first episode, and Caleb, because my first episode was a little. So we're happy to be here with Stephanie Noble, who, if you guys had any idea to see any of our promos, let me know if those promos are getting to you out there. We're happy to welcome this Dharma teacher, this path of wisdom, and we welcome you to the show, Stephanie.
Thank you so much. Sure. Thank you so much. Happy to be here. Thanks for having.
How are you doing today?
Doing very well. I live out in California in the Bay Area, and so it's just the sun's just going down here. And we think we're going to get rain tonight, so we're a little excited about that. It's what we live for here. Rain.
Wow. Yeah, I'm thinking about that in perspective, right, Caleb? I mean, I think a lot of people we've interviewed haven't been from California. You might be one of our first ambassadors coming in from Cali. So I love this. I love this.
We actually,
yeah. Was there someone else?
About it, well, while thinking about it, Tarik, we're actually covering like 3 out of 4 of the time zones in the United States. We've got the Eastern time zone, we've got the Central, and we've got the Pacific. We're just missing the mountain.
We need the mountains. So. Yeah, we need the mountains.
We need the mountains. Anybody know anyone from like Colorado?
Yeah, just bring them on in.
That's so awesome. Yeah, you mentioned this. You mentioned this idea of like the sun going down. I think that's very proverbial. I don't know if you meant that in any deeper way than it is, but I mean the sun
doesn't actually go down, does it? So there you go. It's another belief shot.
It's rising somewhere else, indeed. Yeah, I feel like to say, like, how has this year been? I mean, now that the sun is setting on the mountaintop of where we are, I mean, I can go into detail about everything we've done. You said you'd watch some of the episodes, but we obviously started out with entrepreneurship, and we started out with actually trying to make sure our demographics and everyone that watches us out there have been benefiting from the show as much as we have been benefiting from people watching the show. It has gone into more spiritual development since then, and now we're here at the mountaintop. So I'm curious, how has this year been for you?
Well, it's been very deep, very rich. It's been, like most meditation teachers, have gone to Zoom. We're not teaching in person. And so that's been an interesting challenge technologically, but also, maintaining that sense of gathering, that sense of togetherness. I think we're fortunate in the Insight Meditation community in that when we come together, we're mostly sitting in silence anyway. And so it's not like we chant together and then, how on Zoom it would be all discordant and weird. sometimes it's entertaining to just do that, just for the cacophony of the whole thing. But but it's actually been really good. I feel like, Thich Nhat Hanh once said, he's a Vietnamese Zen teacher of great renown, and he was a refugee from Vietnam back in the day, and he likens, he talks about a boat, that if you're out on a little boat, out on the waves, if one person can be calm, then that one person can keep everybody else calm. So I feel like what meditation teachers have been doing, suddenly it's like, this is what we've practiced for. This is what we're here for, to hold this calm, so that our little sanghas, our little groups, our little, and the broader community, as we reach out to it and are exposed to it through our books, etc., we're holding that space, holding the boat, keeping it afloat, so that others can calm down and be in this moment just as it is, and not get so caught up in the reeling mind that's just like lurching here and lurching there, and then you're falling off the boat. It's a mess. So, just like anybody else, this year has been so full of so many things that just break my heart. So many lives lost, so many people struggling, and my heart just goes out to the healthcare workers and the essential workers. I mean, we've never been closer to our grocery store clerks. We
Right?
just virtual hugs. It's just like, it's such a heart year. And then it was like all spring, there was in our community, because we're more suburban, we're in San Rafael and Marin County, and there started to be a thing, not of the pots and pans, but of howling, because we have coyotes. So we all howl, and we go out at it. We used to go out at 8:00 and howl. And then somebody on next door said, couldn't you do that at 7? Because the baby was just getting to sleep. So there's been so many things about this year that have been about coming together. And even though we're totally apart, and the hardest thing for me personally has been being a grandmother and not being able to hug my little grandbabies, or have them over, or sit and watch just really awful Disney movies and eat popcorn together, all that kind of just simple stuff that you love to do. And I think that that's been the really hard part. And of course, if you live at a distance, having Zoom, et cetera, is great, or whatever you have. And thank God for technology, you know?
Right. You're exactly right. And that's a good cliff point for right there, for sure. Like, thank God for technology, for sure. No, it's a good thing, because I know a lot of religious cultures have been very anti progressive, things. And we've noticed that given what we're doing with our platform, as the wise Buddhist temple leader said before recently, we've had several people on. I'm sorry if I'm blanking on names right now. Basically, what we're providing now is a service that is some sort of religious service, in a sense that we can have people come on and bring on their own philosophical thought and their own visions, and just everything that can kind of just like create the sense of community. I often feel that now that we're in such a spiritual world, we see that there is really no bounds to the spirituality. You spoke about sitting on camera with someone and just kind of really still feeling that presence and creating that perfect peace. I mean, that's such a thing of the past. I mean, not really, if you think about ancient times, they meditated, and they felt like they could meditate across long periods of space and time and connect with each other. So I think maybe it's coming full circle, as much as technology has, been a detriment to certain aspects, for sure.
And the beauty of teaching online is that my students aren't limited geographically. So now I have international students and students from everywhere. And that makes such a difference too. And so now we're thinking, well, now we can't go back because then so-and-so wouldn't be able to join us. So I don't know, we might not meet in person, or we might do that on special occasions or, for retreats. I think the biggest loss has been the retreat centers and the Insight Meditation community retreats, being able to go on long retreats, whether it's a weekend, a day long, or 11-day, 2 months, 3 months. Those have been the real core of insight meditation practice in the West. And Spirit Rock and other meditation centers.
Mount Shasta, right?
What?
Mount Shasta, is that one of them? Are you familiar with that one?
No, I don't recognize that one, but there
Okay,
are a number of them. There are so many.
Yeah.
Buddhism has so many different traditions, and many of them are represented in the West. So my tradition is insight meditation. It's rooted in the Theravada tradition of Southeast Asia, and the Theravada tradition, all Buddhism has its core tenets, as your guest last week so beautifully spoke to, but insight meditation is, it adheres to the Pali Canon, and then you hear the difference between a sutta and a sutra, and a sutra means you're in the Mahayana traditions, which Zen and all of those Tibetan, all the different Zens plus Tibetan and many others are in that tradition. But the Theravada tradition of Southeast Asia, so all around the Bay of Bengal, including Sri Lanka, where the first, where the Pali Canon was first written down, hundreds of years after the Buddha taught. It's a very different feeling thing, and you see the saffron robes. You can see it visually, the difference, and it's an interesting thing about how that Buddhist tradition came west. One of the things, many people from the West went east, even in the 1800s, and brought various traditions west. And some traditions did have missionaries to the West. So that's been going on for well over 100 years. But this particular tradition that Spirit Rock and Insight Meditation Society in Barre, Massachusetts, and all of the sanghas, all of the communities all over the place that are part of that you can find on the Buddhist Insight Network. You just click on it and it sends you to your closest sangha. Yeah. It's great. It's great. And there's also a thing on there where you can find, there's a calendar of everybody that's teaching on every day of the week that some enterprising couple of people put together for the pandemic, because suddenly everybody's online. So that was great. So there's all these offerings, but how did that come about? It came about by what's called a reverse messenger. So Jack Kornfield and Joseph Goldstein and Sharon Salzberg, all in the 60s and early 70s, Jack and Joseph were in the Peace Corps, and Sharon was traveling around India, and they were all over there and learning all this stuff, and they became initiated into Buddhism in that way and practiced very deeply. And then when they returned to the United States, they formed the Insight Meditation Society in Barre, Massachusetts. And then Jack moved out to California, and he and another group of people eventually formed a Spirit Rock Meditation Center in Woodacre in Marin County, California. So these are two anchors. And there are a couple of other insight meditation, one in England and one in Switzerland as well. So these are the four real anchors of insight meditation as it is taught in the West. So it's rooted in the Theravada tradition of Southeast Asia, but it feels a little different because, hey, we're Westerners and we're not carrying over a lot of, we're not wearing the robes. We've kept the rituals that are important, but the main thing about insight meditation is the practice of meditation. Right. So learning to really sense in and to really be present from moment to moment and anchoring into the senses, that's what insight meditation is about. And if we can practice that, a little bit every day, whether using Insight Timer or something, which many of us, including myself, have published. You can find my guided meditations on Insight Timer. And of course, there are other.
What's that website? I didn't mean to interrupt you, but what's Insight Timer? I'm not familiar with.
Okay, Insight Timer is a free app, and it's wonderful. It has so many different, and it's not just Buddhist at all. It's everything about meditation, and it's a worldwide community of meditators, and it's fun because I just do the timer part for my own meditation. And at the end, it says, you've been meditating with these many people around the world, and, here are the ones nearby. Feel free to say hi. So that creates this world Sangha, which is so lovely. So that is not it's Insight Timer, but it isn't claiming to be part of the Insight meditation community. It really serves every kind of meditation. It's really just about meditation. So Christian meditation, all kinds of meditation.
Yeah, that puts us in so much. I'm sorry to interrupt. That puts us in such, like, you're really putting us on, Stephanie, because you just said how much people have been having issues with their spirituality because of the closeness. And there's like, you're creating a social platform for people to join together. I don't know it's not the only one, because I've heard of Calm and I've heard of other ones like that. But despite the trending aspect of it, what people really need to do is connect with people along the same vibrational frequency. And that's what matters, And I think you said so much I wanted to go back to. But that's healthy. And just anyone out there that is actually still having issues or struggling with their own spirituality or what they may need, there's so many apps out there, even if you don't want to learn directly, and you can learn from people that may be just like you. So that's beautiful to create communities like that. And I think it's a revolution for social media in that aspect as well, because when people think of social media, they think of very bad, negative type of things just because of what we've seen and the capitalist aspect of it. But if we can take these marketing tools to actually help people connect along the same vein of spirituality, much like people that went to Boston, and I mean, I'm a Spirit Rock. Maybe some Spirit Rock people would never go back to Boston. Who knows how connected that would be? But in this world, everyone's on the same plane, and I think that's this internet, World Wide Web. We're on the same plane, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah, it is awesome.
I want to ask a question. So this is like, I like to get into the nitty gritty sometimes of Buddhism. So especially with insight, you mentioned retreats, and I often feel like that. It has been a very big thing, not only with insight meditation, but just all these spiritual practices. And actually corporate world too is very big on this, where they'll take a bunch of CEOs and they put them in a sweat lodge or something, something out there. And it always is a transformational period for a lot of people. It's not to play on the word, like I usually do very punny stuff like this, but how much of this year have we had to retreat within ourselves and learn how to do that retreat? Despite, really going on these retreats. I actually still want to do one whenever they open back up. But yeah. So how has that process been? Is that through the apps? Or
there a number of teachers have, and I don't know, I haven't talked with them to see how that worked, or I haven't talked with people who've gone on a retreat. Mm-hmm. If you live home alone, you can be on a retreat. Sylvia Boorstein wrote a book years ago, about retreating at home by yourself. But there's really something about stepping out of your life.
I agree.
and just being someplace where absolutely nothing is required of you, where they feed you incredible good food,
I've never heard about that part.
delicious vegetarian food, and you're generally out in nature, and nature is absolutely the best Dharma teacher ever, because the two most important things that Buddhism teaches us is about the nature of impermanence and the nature of interconnection, which you've referred to several times. And those two things are what nature teaches us. So being out in nature is really the combination of just really quieting down, unplugging, and then being out in nature. I think it's really possible to do your own retreat. And I would encourage anybody to try it, but to be sure to include time in nature. I really see how that makes such a difference. And I think in cities, there are more and more places in nature. In San Francisco, we have the Salesforce Park, and it's 4 floors up, and it's the size of a football field, but it's absolutely lovely. It's a really lovely park that they just created a few years back. And
people just come and meditate and enjoy the space, and
I
just
think
like
that
the
would be
birds,
very
right?
nice. Absolutely, very nice.
That's beautiful. I mean, I've definitely trained in 2 different places. I think meditating at home is different than meditating outside, right? Right, Caleb? You know, Caleb's our resident tree expert, so he speaks for the trees. He speaks for the trees. But I guess it's the question for Caleb, since we switch it up. Would you rather meditate in the forest, or would you rather meditate within? What do you think?
You talking to Caleb or me?
Yeah, I was talking to Caleb.
That's a I think it's a great question. I personally I think personally I'm willing to meditate wherever I can find a good safe space for myself, and I can really feel one with my environment. But I'm also not the type of person that I'm not picky. I mean, I'll take whatever I'm given. I'm not a picky person at all.
He's on his path to Buddhism, and
but I definitely
he's also freezing into
rather do it
meditation.
in the forest. There's around my area. Well, lots of great parks around my area that are perfect for being able to be one with the environment. So that's what I would say.
Lovely. That's lovely.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you know, specifically now, since we have that West Coast perspective, you kind of, I guess maybe it's been a bit different over there. You've been suffering from a lot more lockdowns, a lot more isolation. And I'm in New York City, so well, I was in New York City. Currently, I'm in Atlanta, but there was a lot of lockdowns, and we actually were the pots and pans people, by the way.
Oh, I know you were. Oh, I know you were.
Yeah, it was beautiful. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I don't know if it was November. It's one of these episodes at this point, and I brought that up. I was like, you know, we should totally bring that back, because the gratefulness that we have for human society needs to keep up, and I don't want to lose this heart. I hate that in these large tragedies, whether it be 9/11, you know, God rest all those souls and stuff, where we come together and the city comes together, and then it's a couple years later and everyone's back at each other's throats. Such is life, you know. They're, you know, like the money. Yeah, you know, it's like, but I feel like maybe we can like take little bits and pieces with us as we go forward. And I think that's one thing I do want to keep up. I think learning how to appreciate someone else is not something that was happening at all in 2021. I'm sorry, 2020 and 2019. Exactly. But I will bring this into 2021. That's what it feels like. It really does. Yeah. So I'm trying to be more appreciative of people, and I think that's definitely going to grant a lot more karma and dharma and stuff. So, so how have you? What inspired you to write your book? I'm curious about that.
Well, I've been teaching. What's in the book I have been teaching for many years, and but I love to teach self-inquiry because it's how I came. I actually was was meditating long before I started practicing Buddhism, long before I came to Spirit Rock. And it actually helped me out of kind of a midlife crisis of health loss. I lost my mother. I was in a career, I was executive vice president of a small ad agency. And one day I said to a coworker laughingly, "Oh, I feel totally separate from myself. Ha ha."
Huh.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
And then I laughed. And then I laughed and went on my merry way, not thinking that, well, this isn't good. This
But you
isn't
also
good.
you're in an environment where no one would notice. You talk about community, but in a marketing agency,
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
it,
maybe. Although I
no,
think they recognized that I
they
wasn't
felt it. Okay.
authentic. I wasn't authentic,
Mm,
which I think, I mean, and this is an identity podcast, and I think it's important that we spend some time talking about identity and Buddhism and identity, because there's a big thing there. And I really want to make that thing. But in that particular time in my life, I was just spinning. I'm sure a lot of people recognize that period where you're working full time, you're in charge of a lot of things. I had to worry about my clients, my employees, my coworkers, my husband, my children. I didn't have to worry about my husband; he was great. But my children were teenagers, and as wonderful as they were, they're teenagers. You got to worry about them. And there were all these things, and then at the core of my concern, and then my parents were both ill, and I was their primary caregiver, and then my mother died.
okay.
Things just kind of started spinning completely out of control. My mother recognized it. She said, "Oh, something's off with you. Your energy is just really low." And I started to be able to tell that my energy was really low because every piece of clothing I bought was red. My daughter would just brought that up at Christmas time. She said, "Are those still the same red gloves from way back when?"
Wow.
And I said, "Yeah." She said, "Oh my God, you had red shoes, you had a red hat, you had two different, a red wool long coat, and a red everything was red, and
Right.
red boots. I had red
What
ears. It was
what
sad.
what did
It was
the
sad. It was
what did the
very
red
bad.
mean to you? What did the red
What?
mean to you? What did the red mean to you? Was it like a
Energy. It was like energy. I really think, and I didn't pick up on it till later. And I looked at my wardrobe and I go, "Oh my God, I'm just craving energy." I was
Okay.
exhausted. And so I came down with chronic fatigue immune fatigue dysfunction, whatever it is,
Right.
syndrome. That's what it is.
Right.
Anyway, it's been so long.
We're
I'm
all
so far
right.
past it. I don't even remember what it's called, which is really good.
Really good.
Anyway, so I began. So the doctor said, "No, you've got to quit your job." And so I did. And I began to meditate again. I had learned in my 20s, but I hadn't had the time. I think a lot of people can recognize not having the time to meditate. That's just such a bogus excuse.
Yeah,
Because
I see.
even if you meditated for 5 minutes a day, it would just turn a notch. It would
Right.
it would pivot you into a place where everything else becomes much easier to handle. But when it comes to identity, it's the key to finding authenticity. And I think that the real challenge we have is that out of fear, we're creating identity and we're grabbing labels and applying them to ourselves and bolstering ourselves up. And what we're really doing is we're shoring up this fortress of separation. And, so we're more and more separate and more alone. The more we label ourselves and the more we, say, "Look at me, don't look at me, don't look at me," and just get all caught up in this thing where we're either, and oh my God, we've had, front row seats to the biggest identity challenged person I've ever seen in my life in the past 4 years. It's just incredible to watch. And I don't want to get into politics, but my God, it's just astounding to watch the severe mental health issues involved in somebody who holds such power is very scary to me. But it is a real lesson to all of us to say, okay, I can really see that when I'm terrified of what people are thinking of me, then I'm grabbing labels and, doing all kinds of things to make them think better of me.
Right,
and so it's all reflective. It's all reflective. We're just concerned about how we're being seen rather than just quieting down and rooting in and being true to ourselves and finding what that true nature is and discovering, hey, I mean, like a daisy bush isn't going to be a rose bush, Caleb, an oak isn't going to be a redwood, right? I mean, to be our authentic selves and to live that to our fullest and not to have to go out and promote it or sell it or broadcast it anyway, but to just be true to it and to allow it to be that and yeah, to find a sense of tribe with other people who share interests, but not a sense of tribalism, which is a big difference. Really important to recognize. Wow. Because the tribe comes out of love, a shared passion, and an understanding that we're all one big, great, tribe here, and not just humans. I mean, all life, this great tribe, and not the tribalism that's all out of fear and separation and pointing and blaming. So that's, I think that's the most important thing that is true in every moment and every time.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Yeah, across time and across cultures, across everything. Yeah, I hear that. You just had such cool taglines. I mean, Caleb and I always talk about the highlight reel. You said that basically the search for authenticity is constantly what we're working on. I have heard this before, where you basically say titles or whatever we may assimilate into can become like these shields. I think I mentioned it while you were speaking. Sorry to interrupt you, but as basically shields, so no one can kind of get into the depths of who we are, and even we can't access it. We've locked it up into this place, and that's something that you said you experienced, and I definitely have. I've been there. I think that I'm still on that path. I'm not necessarily teaching spirituality yet, but I'm on this path, of talking to people and having this conversation with so many leaders. So I appreciate you being on the show and saying these like wonderful taglines. But yeah, authenticity, what does it really mean? People talk about, you said politics, but Trump being a liar or whatever, but he's himself on camera. Who's to say that this disassociation that he isn't how he identifies himself whenever it's convenient? And I just don't want to be like that. So I feel like a lot of what we can do is, like you said, remove. Tribalism does have a lot to do with separation. I do agree. People tribed up mostly because if they say, as far as evolution is concerned, not to believe in evolution, but the evolution of society from dogs and pack mentality. And all of that was based upon fear. And a lot of these things have continued to move along those paths to keep us in a position that we'll say like those people over there aren't like us, because we've found ways that we've been able to identify ourselves. And somehow we found ways that didn't separate ourselves from them. So I think, the universal tribe has become a lot more convenient, a lot more easier to access, I believe, whether it be race, color. You spoke about geographic location. I mean, some purists of Buddhism may have issues with insight meditation, whatever it may be at the time. But I'm realizing we're under this larger umbrella of everything. And I think you spoke to that in such a significant way, for sure. I guess I asked more or less like, how does one know when they're being authentic? I know this is like a very big question, but when have you gotten to a point within your meditation where you're like, I feel that self, I feel this undying aspect? Because you do believe in reincarnation, right?
No, I'm a big believer in the I don't know mind.
Fair
Um,
enough. Fair enough. Okay.
I don't know. I don't know what happens. If you do, tell me. But I wouldn't necessarily believe you because obviously you, I don't know. You know, it, how do we know? We don't know. And the Buddha did say, "Don't take my word for it." I don't think
Right.
he was. I don't think he was really all that big into reincarnation. I don't think he was that interested in it. He accepted
Right.
it as that was the Hindu culture that he, grew up in, and he accepted it, but he wasn't curious about it. He was curious about psychology and what makes people suffer.
Right.
So, and he wanted to find an end of suffering. And he did address dependent origination. So things cause things. So there is a karma, but it's not like karmic retribution, like, well, you were born in a crappy life and I don't have to worry about that because it's just your fault that you were born into a crappy life. You must have done something really crappy in your past life. And so it's not my problem. That, that does not fly with me at all. And I think that that's a faux belief to sort of let ourselves off the hook when somebody else is suffering. When anybody else is suffering, it's our challenge to see what it is that we can do, even if it is just, and just is just in quotes because I believe it's powerful, sending metta. And metta is infinite loving kindness. So when we send metta to somebody, say you're trying to meditate, but you keep thinking about a particular problem or a particular person that's bugging you or something, and or somebody you're concerned about or worried about, and in that moment, the most skillful thing you can do is recognize, I've been thinking, okay, that's the habit of mind.
Right.
Coming back to the senses, back to the breath. But in that turning away, we're not making an enemy of the thought. We're holding it in compassion. We're saying that, that's the nature of things. And if it's a real sticky thought, like, it's really got a hold on us, to practice metta, to say, may you be well, may you be at ease, may you be peaceful, may you, and this is my favorite one that I use and that my students love, may you know the joy of being fully present in this moment, just as it is. And to me, that is the greatest blessing you can possibly give anyone. So we always give metta to ourselves first, because you can't share what you don't have. And then as we become full of it, full to overflowing, then and only then we share it with others. So yeah, that seems to be the real kernel of it to me.
That's true. That's very true. Yeah, that's awesome. I don't know if you guys are seeing, Caleb's having some issues with his camera. But he's here. I was gonna ask, I know you wanted to bring up a point earlier about the connections. So I think this would be a great time for that. Or
Yeah, with the shelter in place, I found what I really wanted to do was really study hard. I really wanted a hard subject, and that is so not like me. I am not a scholar by any stretch of the imagination. I forget things faster than I remember, but just the shelter in place, I wanted something really difficult to do. And I'm on the board of directors of the Buddhist Insight Network. And we needed on the website a really good explanation of, Buddhist Insight meditation came about. And so in exploring the history, I found 2 different books, and I also took an online Harvard course in Buddhism through its scriptures and all this stuff. I was just like really deep into it. Man, I'm just like, my husband's going, is this you? I don't recognize you. Where did the little video games? I mean,
wow,
where's
that's
Wordscapes?
beautiful.
But it just, that's where shelter in place really took me for quite a while. Just go really deeply. And I think that that's how my book also got written. It's just the space was clear. A friend of mine was out of work and needing the needing the work and a very talented designer editor. And it was time to put that little piece, together and get it out there. And people are really finding it super helpful. So I'm really glad. And I'm also going to be, I wanted to say that I'm going to be doing an evening 6-week series starting on Tuesday, January 12th. It'll be evening in the West Coast, so it'll be, only for night owls on the East Coast. But
there's plenty of them, believe me.
But to share more about the subjects in the book and to discuss it together. So it's a companion piece to the book. If anybody's interested, just contact me.
For sure. We didn't really get to go too deep on the book, and we're almost reaching our 45 mark. We might push it to 50. So if you guys want to bear with this a little more, I did want her to talk a little bit more about the book. Nothing crazy, but just a little blurb, and then I did want to talk a little bit about this connection to metaphysics really quickly. And just how everything is all intertwined into this grand scheme of the world, and that's kind of the purpose of what we've been doing with this podcast. So it's funny that Spirit had led you to be like, okay, it's time to dig deep. My biggest thing, I've explained to some other guests, that I've kind of bounced around different religions in a sense that my mother was very Christian and taught me a lot of that, and my dad's very Muslim, and they've both kind of come into different aspects of spirituality from those paths. And I was able to travel to Japan at 16, so I was able to get really into Shintoism back then. So for that, I was just like, I'm pulling from tradition and traditions that may not necessarily be my own, and it's a lot of stuff. So I'm curious, how have you seen the big circle, as they say, right? Like the big three, or all of them all connecting to different things? So 2 questions. We're gonna hit the book, and then we're also gonna hit the interconnectivity for sure.
Okay. Well, it's interesting how we do arrive. I mean, how I arrived at Buddhism was I was already meditating, and it had been transformational for me. I'd written a book called Tapping the Wisdom Within, A Guide to Joyous Living, which was really just contacting my own inner wisdom and just taking notes. I just took many notes, and I had a meditation teacher who said, oh, well, you got to publish this. And I did, and it really helped a lot of people. So the interesting thing is that book was the answers that were given to me for questions I was asking. And this book is about is just the questions that will prompt your own inner wisdom. So this is more of a how-to book of how to get your own inner wisdom activated, how to listen into it, and how to be activated. So it's interesting, these 2 books, but they're both self-inquiry books. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's like a call and response. That's awesome. But you did describe how metta has to be given to oneself, and then now the second book is giving it to others. So I think that does come full circle. How do you identify these things unless you ask these questions? It's so funny because the way you're describing it is as if the former identity, the identity that you were describing as this very split, like the spirit's not almost moving in tandem with the body, had these questions about itself and this being and the spirit that was becoming more one. And then the next book is just like, okay, now that I'm here at this oneness, not to say that they're reading them in order, because they may not, but it's just interesting that once you figure it out, okay, everything that we thought was the limitations of our body, the shields that we were talking about from other people, from our own perceptions, throw them out and let's start asking new complete questions once you found who you are. And I think this self-reflective process, the retreating inside, everything you're describing it's what we're here for, and I think self-help used to be very trendy and kind of like a gimmicky thing. And I think it's honestly saving our lives now. So we appreciate your books for sure and everything that you're doing. So that's the show. No, we made it to 45 minutes, guys. I wanted you to solicit anything that you are coming up with. We wanted to support everything that you're doing. Do you have any new projects coming in 2021 or?
Well, I think I'm going to focus on starting out, making sure that everybody who is reading the book feels supported in reading the book. I hope that people who read the book, who are inspired by the book and feel that it worked for them, will share it with their book groups and feel that they can lead that. So I want to help them to be able to share it, because the book speaks for itself. It's not like you have to know a lot. It's just a starting point to access the inner wisdom that we all have inside of us.
Right.
And so it's just a way to look at it. It's the kinds of questions that bring that about. And so I just hope that, it kind of finds legs and makes its way into the world. I priced it very, very low. It's not a profit maker for me by any stretch, but
it's to help people, and that's what we're here for.
It's to help people. What else is there really?
What the other aspect are the like you said, you do actually host your own meditations as well, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So definitely check those out as well. And get connected. And I think you're fostering a great community. I think the book club and any book reviews would be great. So definitely check her out. Right there it is, right there. StephanieNoble.com for sure.
Yeah. And Tarik, one thing is that on my website, there are over 400 blog posts.
That's
so
right.
those are my Dharma talks. And for most people, that's going to be the most accessible ways to follow my blog. And that's, and you can do a search, anything that's going on with you. Do it in. There will be probably 12 different Dharma talks that address that from all different angles. So it's a resource that's worth looking into too.
That's awesome. I can't wait to have you back on, for sure, because I'm curious about how people would be interested in becoming their own spiritual teachers, or following their path of spirituality, leaving those jobs or whatever it may be that may not be fulfilling them. If you're there at your job, please don't leave yet. But if you are feeling the call and there's something to change within you, definitely take that time to separate from things that you may know of yourself. And I'm one to say right now, I'm in Atlanta, I'm away from New York right now, just enjoying the space. So right in nature, doing what I need to do. So I implore you guys to not do what I'm doing, but to get some time away and travel. But I'm curious to see like when we can talk about some new stuff and whenever. So we'll talk about that much later. So Caleb,
I'm here. I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah, I know. We're
well, I don't know. Maybe I am. Maybe into another plane. I don't know.
Oh boy. Yeah, I know. Let's start meditating right now. You guys stay on for the next 10 minutes. We'll all actually be meditating. No, definitely there's a time and a place for that. But
that'd be great.
One day we will. We'll just put some on and we'll actually create a space for some people. But we'll leave it to the experts like Stephanie here until we get there. Definitely check us out on Facebook, TikTok. I kind of know it a little bit by this year. I should know it by this time, right, guys? You gonna do it, Caleb?
Yeah.
Can you hear me already?
She knows better than me.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. As long as you can hear me, we're great. But the screen is out. Sorry about the technical difficulties. There was literally a solid 10 minutes where I didn't hear anything. But it was a great show from what I could tell. Thank you, Tarik, for being awesome. For always that lovely things of having a co-host, I tell you.
Right.
But once again, you've been listening to the Identity Podcast. It's great. Once again, thank you for listening to the Identity Podcast. As always, presented and brought to you by Find Your ID NYC. You can like us on Facebook at Find Your ID NYC and follow us on Instagram by the same name. Don't forget to check out our YouTube page at the X Shows and the Identity Podcast YouTube page as well. We're also now on Twitter and TikTok at the Identity Podcast. Don't forget to check out our podcast, which you can check out on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, whatever podcast app out there. We're out there. I promise you we're on there. Every week, every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern time, you can catch the Identity Podcast. It's a time that I'm so grateful for. It's an amazing time. And this has been our 2020. This is it. This is the final episode of 2020. It's this huge thing. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for coming onto the show and being able to talk to us about this amazing topic. it was absolutely beautiful from what I heard. It was absolutely absolutely amazing, and we would love to have you back on. And if you want to stay just real quick after we end the recording, we'll talk to you about something real quick. But it's been an absolute honor as always. Thank you. I hope you all have had a happy holiday and a happy new year as well. We are so close to 2021, and yesterday was the 29th, and we had what could be a big year ahead of us in our midst, I should say. So that's exciting stuff there. But to talk about next year, we have a big show coming up. New year, new identity.
Right? What's happening this year? No. Oh God.
New year, new identity featuring Dreamcast McFly.
There she is. we got a new co-host.
Our big fan, our biggest and a former guest on the show.
I don't think he knows he's glitching. Yes, Dreamcast McFly. He actually works with us as well, so we're happy to have him on. He was actually one of the second or third episodes, so he's been supporting since the beginning.
Wonderful.
So this should be big, and it'll be a show for sure because he's a musician. He has a lot to say. So very awesome.
Sounds wonderful.
Yeah, can everyone still hear me all right? I think
Yeah, we hear you now.
We didn't hear you before, but he filled in for you. So.
Great. What was the last thing you heard? What was
Dreamcast? Yeah. Oh boy, Caleb.
But Tarik told us all about it, so don't worry about it.
Indeed. So we're not going to stress it, but definitely, thanks to everyone. Definitely check out Stephanie's stuff. She's been awesome. Definitely check out any places that may be nearby you as well. She mentioned some places in Boston and other stuff. Do your homework. Do your retreat. Caleb, you back? No? Okay. Do that work for yourself.
Go to the Buddhist Insight Network to find a Sangha near you. Yeah.
That's the way to go.
Yeah.
2021 schedule. Finale on. You got it? Oh, Caleb. Finale on religion series and move into environmentalism. So
yay.
Yeah, it should be very fun stuff.
Oh, that's very exciting.
Yes. So it's gonna be a great recap. I'm sure we're gonna have a lot of connections to some of the people we spoke to all year long and all fun stuff. So definitely tune in for that. We're gonna see basically all the work that we put in for this year come together. So I really appreciate it. We've gotten such great accolades and stuff. So we're gonna just keep going with this. Yeah, this is a very calm episode. I really appreciate that. Sometimes it may be a little hyphy, but you did express creating that perfect peace and how you become a staple of that, and you can kind of become like I want to say Bowie, but the waters are going, like that boat that you described.
Label, don't worry about it.
Yeah, something like that, like something to be able to float on the surface. It actually reminds me of a very Christian comment of when Jesus was in the boat and Jesus basically was asleep at the bottom of the boat, and it's this massive storm coming, and everything's going, all the captain's getting upset and whatever. He's knocking on Jesus' door. Jesus wakes up and he's like, "Why have you woke me up? Oh ye of little faith," and kind of does his miracle, but he's very upset that people had lost faith and their own natural being. So let's not lose faith.
That's a perfect ties into the beginning Thich Nhat Hanh.
Indeed.
Yeah, beautiful.
So yeah, Caleb. Can you hear me? I guess.
He doesn't look like he can hear you.
Okay, so I can wrap it up. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So I'll see you guys. It's been real. See you 2021. Thanks for all the support. I'm still here. So yeah, there it is. Delay reaction. Yes. He's like, I'm gonna be mid-frame with him. This will be on a t-shirt. Also, we will be handing out Hawaiian shirts after the episode. So see, I know you heard that one. See, there it is. All right, guys. I'll see you. You can sign off, Caleb.